and welcome to Into You, the podcast where I take a deep dive into getting to know the best you. My name is Adam Strawn, and today I have with me, somebody incredibly talented and so very, very lovely, and one of my good friends. He is a singer and songwriter based in New York, USA. His YouTube channel includes amazing ethereal synth pop covers of artists such as Britney Spears, Lewis Capaldi, Miley Cyrus, Harry Styles, and more, as well as some collaborations with his partner Corvix, with whom he co-hosts the Queerdos YouTube reaction channel. And I did an episode with Corvix of Into You podcast, so if you haven't listened, go and check that out already. He is the vocalist of alt-pop duo King Vagabond, alongside guitarist Nico Vord, and whose latest single, Rule the World, can be heard on all streaming platforms. Go and listen to it right the hell now. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome to the podcast, the one and only, Mr. Joey Dean. How are you doing, my lovely?
Hello, I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really, really good, thank you. Yeah, stepping back into You podcast, but absolute pleasure to start off season 2 with you, Joey. So yeah, I'm doing really well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Before we start, are we on video today as well, or no?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, because last time I did a podcast, I was gesturing, and they were like, "This isn't on video." Okay, sorry.
The whole thing is.
I'm always on stage, so I'm always ready.
Oh, I know. I remember from New York.
Yeah, it doesn't quit. Like the New York street sides, they're a red carpet. I don't know if anybody's been to New York. If you haven't treated the sidewalk like a red carpet, no one's gonna think you're crazy.
No,
I mean, at the very least, they'll think you're on crack.
But I mean,
right in.
Yeah, exactly right. Everybody's doing lines anyway. So, how has your week been, Joey? Tell me all about it. What have you been up to?
It's been great. I'm in the shadow of Rule the World releasing, which is the first King Vagabond single, which I've been preparing for over a year. Yeah. Clap, claps to my excitement and my demise simultaneously. And it's my first original since 2019, since pre-pandemic. So this is I feel like I am completely treading new waters. I'm barely staying afloat, but it's happening.
But it's an absolute banger. I love it. And it's like, I mean, we'll talk about the single properly in a little bit, but just, I remember first hearing it and I was just like, oh my God, it feels like so established. It feels, I don't know, it just feels so current and yet such an honor to that 80s synth, just poppy, rocky type vibe as well. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Thank you.
I've made my friends listen to it and everything as well, and they're all big fans. So, but we'll get into that in a bit.
Hi, Adam's friends. Sorry for taking over your mind.
All 2 of them. I'm joking.
It's more than I have.
But yeah, so my week, I went to see Aurora this week live in London. So that was amazing. She was incredible. And it was nice because I, about 2 weeks ago, had COVID. So I was suffering. So I missed out on her being in Newcastle, which, was a shame. But I managed to get a ticket and I saw her for our last show in the UK, which was obviously in London. So she was phenomenal. Have you checked her out, Joey? Have you listened to much of her stuff?
Because it's strange when I say that. We can talk more about musical influences throughout this episode, but I am so lightly influenced by musicians. I am so much more influenced by the aesthetic of things and literature, and there is something akin to her energy that speaks deeply to things I am inspired by. So even though sonically we're really different, I remember we spoke about her, and you had learned that I hadn't really heard her music. I'd heard a few things passively, so I got the general vibe. She's kind of a contemporary pop-ier Bjork. It's really like the way my mind's kind of classifying her. And I knew instantly where she was speaking from, and I was like, I don't want to listen. I don't want to be influenced. I'm developing my brand. I don't want to be I just don't want to be tainted by the minds of others, especially artists who are profound artists. So it's like, people like that can be infectious, and they can be potent, and they can really infiltrate. So I was like, I'll keep my distance. But I have listened to more music since releasing and since kind of completing the world of King Vagabond. So I like it, but I don't know too much. But I think she's fabulous.
Yeah, she's incredible. This is her album here, actually. Her latest album.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's kind of new.
Yeah, it is. It's a latest album signed by her as well when I met her. In person. So that was phenomenal. But anyway, enough about Aurora. We're here to talk about King Vagabond and Joey Dean. But yeah, just to say, so you and I met. So it was via Corvix, right? So I think I started to check out a lot of his music, obviously on YouTube and everything like that, reached out to him. And then by proxy, I obviously got to know yourself as well, right? And then started to check out some of your incredible covers on YouTube as well. And then we had the pleasure of meeting in New York, like right in December 2021, right? That was fun.
Unexpected, but lovely.
Yeah, no, I had such a good time, and it was fab. Like we spent the whole day together, and just yeah, it was like it's one of the moments where it's so surreal, right? When you've met somebody from online, and then when you actually come together in real life, it is that moment of, oh my god, like it feels so strange, although we've been like interacting for like so long.
I feel like I was on MySpace again. You're on MySpace, and you were in like I was part of those scene clicks where it was like. You had your peace sign, vertical mirror picture, and all these people I had known through the MySpace web. And then I met them in person at the mall at Hot Topic. And I've been really experienced that in a long time. And I wish I was kidding, but I'm not kidding. That is like actual factual.
That is a vibe, and I am here for it. Take me back. Take me top 5. Do you remember top 5s on MySpace?
I do. I talked about it all the time while playing Dance Dance Revolution.
Yeah. And like if you ever moved anybody like a position down, it was like, it was people were like, oh my god, you've moved me down. Why am I now number 3? I was number 2 last week. And it was like passive aggressive, where if your number 1 pissed you off, you're like, you're number 2 this week. It meant nothing in the grand scheme.
Forums you'd post, and it'd be some passive aggressive. Your Instagram, not your Instagram, your instant away message would be some song lyric that was just so dark and deviant and passive aggressive.
I was like,
miss those days. Now everyone's just a forward asshole.
Like everyone's just getting cancelled. But I just loved as well, like as soon as the song came onto your profile, so you could like put one song on. Oh my god, that was it for me. It changed like every single day. But I just loved it. And like, yeah, it was just MySpace, man. It was so ahead and behind its time.
I know. I wish it was a thing now, but it was still really enjoyable that we've kind of entered a space where I feel like the internet entered a space where it was like these kind of echo chambers of people we know. So during the pandemic, with the space of silence and being creatives and connecting, it was really nice to kind of I was joking but being serious, relive when I was 14 years old and meeting strangers online. Which happened with us.
Yeah, exactly right. But we weren't 14, so that was the main thing. But all right, Joey. So let's take a deep dive into getting to know you. So obviously, I know, right? Let's dive right in. Musician, fantastic singer, incredible vocalist. And I've said this a million times. I've talked about your ability and your performance capability and all of that. Such a big fan.
Thank you.
I want to, of course, but I want to start, obviously, let's go back in time. So let's go back to the days of like, I guess, baby Joey.
That was me rewinding. For people listening, I just visually rewound.
I kind of was watching, I was like, he is rewinding, right? Like something isn't happening. Tell me where it all began. So like, where did it begin for you in terms of like your musical career and like your journey into music?
I think I have a peculiar story. And now that I'm older, now that I'm ancient, for so much of my life, I always said I got a late start. But now I'm like, I still feel like I'm young, even though as per the industry, that's not true. But growing up, I was actually extremely shy. And I remember my first instant with music transcending me feeling it beyond, or experiencing the frequencies that music can make you feel. This is like hashtag early signs. This is like the gayest thing I've ever said. I was, I think, 7 years old. It's 1998 or 9, so 6 or 7, and Celine Dion, like I said, gay. Celine Dion performed "My Heart Will Go On either the Oscars or the Grammys. She did it on both that year because I've stalked Celine Dion. I'm gonna say she did it. I watched her on the Grammys because my parents just never were Oscars people, but they definitely liked watching performances on the Grammys. And I remember vividly sitting, I remember where I was, sitting on my staircase, staring at my television, which is embedded in this like 90s glass wall unit, so cheap. and like gaudy looking, and although it was so expensive, and I was just staring at Celine Dion sing "My Heart Will Go On," and I was like, my heart is going on right now. Something's going on. I don't know what's happening, but I like it. And I had this Looney Tunes treasure chest, just kept my toys in it.
Oh my God.
I had any of those, but it was like Looney Tunes. I think it was Space Jam themed. And I remember that night standing on it, and I was like, hand up in the air, belting my face off. I had no clue what I was doing. And I remember running out of my room, and I was like, I can sing, to my mom and dad. And, they were like, yeah, okay. And I, how many years later, I can sing. My parents were still like, yeah, okay. So that was my first moment, my first experience, kind of a lens into music that was understanding, feeling and connecting with it on a deeper level. And I had a musical family. My cousin is a singer who had been singing. She's a year older than me, and she'd been singing since she was like basically in diapers. Our grandmother had studied opera, so I don't really remember her singing much, but it was just something that was part of our extended familial culture. My dad and my mother were not musical creatures by any means, not really creative creatures, very much survivalists. And that mentality really infiltrated the way I perceived my opportunities in life. But I have always been a rebellious sort. And I joke that I came out of the closet at 14, and I came out of the closet as a singer at 21, because I didn't perform until I was 21.
Wow.
And people are like, they meet me now and they're like, you were afraid to get on stage. And even now I get sick to my stomach when I'm about to perform. I feel horrible. They say that about Barbara Streisand. Yeah, it's true. It will never leave my body, my soul. I told myself when I went into college that I would perform if my school put on a production of Rent or Spring Awakening, right? Because I knew those soundtracks, I could kill them. I did not need to really practice. So I was like, all right, I can comfortably not land on my face if I do this, embarrass myself. And it was also such a safety net because my school was not a performing arts school. So I was right. Like, great, I'm gonna make this promise with myself, but there's no way in hell my school's ever gonna do that.
Got it.
Well, the universe had something else planned, because when I was a sophomore in college, my college had a student-run production of Rent put on. Okay. Student-run, which means that the faculty wasn't doing it. So it was like this strange godsend moment. I remember it was organized by this lovely soul, such an instructive mentor in my early years. Her name is Jen Dobies. And my friend Erin, who I had met in a creative writing class because I was going to school for literature because I was quiet and shy, but I loved the creative arts.
Nice.
I told her, we like bonded over being creative, and we were eating lunch one day, and I told her my secret, which is that I secretly like to sing, and if the school ever does a production of Rent or Spring Awakening, I will be auditioning. I actually didn't mean it, but I said it to her because I was like, there's no way this is gonna happen. She stalked me. She followed me. She stalked me. Because she was like, you're auditioning, right? You see the flyers? And I was like, Erin, leave me alone. I'm not doing this. She learned my freaking schedule, knew the classes I went to, followed me. And she bullied me into auditioning. And then I auditioned and I got the part of Mark. It was Rent, not Spring Awakening.
There you go.
Got the part of Mark, which was selections from, so it wasn't like a full production, but it was like a abridged version. And I remember wanting to vomit. And I still feel that feeling every time I get on stage, but it kind of opened up the floodgates. And then I was like, I'm gonna do this. And then I started uploading YouTube videos under my birth name, which is like not an attractive name. So it was like just not for me. But I ended up meeting my original band, Pros and Icons. I met my current fellow member of King Vagabond, Nico. I met him. He was attending my school. He was 2 years younger than me, and he had seen my videos on YouTube. He saw me perform No Diggity at a coffee house.
What
acoustic
a banger
performance. So good. We used to perform it all the time. It was so much fun. I love, like, growing up Sister Act 2 was like my favorite movie. So like Lauryn Hill vocals.
Can we
Yes,
just?
come on.
Can we just?
Snaps for the queen. And I did no diggity, and he walked up to me and he was like, in his ever so young, awkward way, he's like, I've been writing music with a friend, and I think it'd be really good to sing on it. And I was like, okay, that's cute. Like, it's a joke. It's a fun song about texting. So then I started singing it, and then we all were like, wait, this is actually kind of good. So maybe we should try writing music. And then a year later, I performed on stage with a year later. This is basically a year after ever hitting a stage, guys. This is terrifying. This is death. Megan Trainor, Shawn Mendes, Charlie XCX, Rixton, if you remember them, Jessie J, Rita Ora, Kaisa. That was the gig I got on because I won a contest in New York City. Do you know Z100, the radio station? It's the biggest radio station in New York. It's the biggest radio station in America, really.
Wow.
It's an iHeartRadio radio station. I don't know if you ever heard of the personality Elvis Duran?
No.
So he's humongous in the States, and we had won a contest. It was New York City's hometown hero, and we like busted our butts to get votes for it, and we ended up winning.
Nice.
And that's how we got on the gig, and it kind of just like catapulted us into this world with making connections and performing. And I mean, I was so green that I messed up the words on stage. We've come a long way. But yeah, that's how I started. And then it was quickly, there was that was the catalyst, and we quickly made motions. Two of my band members, including Nico, had been pursuing / received degrees in music business, so we had a little bit of a mind for it. And then I had done what I call the silent arts for my whole life. I painted, I wrote literature, poetry. I did everything that was not performative. So I had learned so much that it was able to instruct our brand and the artistic decisions that we were making as creatives, and it led us to a lovely, lovely, lovely journey.
I think what's interesting about that though, Joey, is like, you know, I can share a lot in my own kind of process of like stepping into the arts as well. Because I think the arts is such an interesting thing where you can draw inspiration from all different parts of it, right? So as you say, like you were talking about like literally doing art, like painting, then you've got like, you know, writing as well. Like it's a form of expression, right? In some way, shape or form, you're expressing yourself in some way. And I remember when I was younger, so I got to like, so in like the UK, we do like in like comprehensive school, which is a bit like high school, obviously in America, we do like the first 3 years. And then at the third year, we have to make decisions as to where like the last 2 years where we kind of want to focus our attention, so to speak. I was like naturally really gifted at art, and I loved it. I loved drawing. I loved clay, like painting, all of that, loved it. And then I remember my art teacher saying to me, like, I really think that you should like pursue this. And it was like a fork in the road because I just loved drama. I was a drama kid, you know, I was an actor, and that was my thing, but you couldn't do them both. You had to choose one. I mean, so I was just like, oh my God. And then, yeah, my path took me into acting, but still the influence of like having that artistic eye, I think like bled into like performing and all of that. So I totally get that. And I know what you're saying. And it's very apparent that that's happened with you with, even when you were with Pros and Icons, and even to the point when you were with King Vagabond. I think there's so much inspiration as an artiste, you know, and like, all those different variations that come into that and make you as you know, who you are. But I want to step back just a little bit and just ask you briefly, Joey, like, so when you sing and when I hear you sing, for me, I can hear like technique, I can hear training, I can hear all that, which is, for me, I eat that up. I love that. I've got such an ear for it. Did you pursue that yourself? Cool. Did you pursue? A lot of it comes from, my dad was a trained opera singer. So I kind of like, a lot of it comes from like the history of like listening to him and like listening to him talk about it and training and technique and everything like that. Yeah. Did you undergo like kind of singing lessons, training? Like, did you do that individually kind of when you were at college, or was that an outside thing? Like, when did that take place?
I absolutely have. And because I've always been a talented singer, a natural singer. I've always been able to carry a tune, and I've always been very good at certain things. I have really great natural agility in my voice. I have really great breath support with that kind of lens of singing. I kind of, it's interpreted through the, I guess, I really think, you know, the mind and the upbringing and everything really instructs the minutia of our lives. And I believe that because I was such a quiet person, I learned how to do the quieter things well. Whereas
Mm.
in comparison, Corvix, my lovely better half, he's never been quiet. He's always been a rambunctious little Tasmanian devil, and he can belt his face off. But because I was so shy and I was so repressed, I learned how to do things that were more reeled in. So I'm very good at riffing. I'm very good at that vocal agility. And I grew up in a household for the first 6 to 7 years of my life attached to my grandparents' house. And my grandpa growing up played a lot of records, record players. And my mom, like almost on repeat, would have Motown soundtracks playing. So I was very soul and bluesy influenced, which isn't really, unless you're into artists like, you know, Sam Cooke. A lot of that music is on the smaller scale of singing. And my dad's, you know, Lord and Savior is Elvis Presley, so who is a baritone. So his vocal, even though he can sing beautifully high, it's still, it's not as that super high belty lifted stuff. So when I was singing and I was like 16, I started taking voice lessons, and it was like minor voice lessons. It wasn't anything serious. I didn't understand vocal theory, and I didn't really understand what my teacher was asking me to do. And I think that was where so many of my apprehensions came from, because I'm an astrological believer and I'm a Capricorn, and I like to be prepared. I like to be, I like when situations are predictable. I like to be able to show off within the confines of knowing what's going to happen. But I couldn't ever do that with my voice. I always felt very repressed vocally. I always felt like I want to be Whitney Houston and I have a penis. I can't do that. I.e., back to the moment of Celine Dion at 7 years old, me just wanting to emulate this kind of like floating goddess, belting her face off.
Yeah.
Now I'm marrying one in the future, and it's crazy. So I then went through college kind of just like, when I was performing, it was just like all raw talent and just instinct. And a lot of, now that I'm very trained in voice, a lot of when you're in that like survival mode on stage and you don't really know what you're doing, it develops adverse habits. And I then had to learn to undo them. And I took a choir because I love choir music. I love choir music. And I went to a Catholic affiliated school. So we had this beautiful Christmas show, and it wasn't like Christmas music like the, you know, All I Want for Christmas Is You. It was Gregorian style, Latin, French. Like it was all these different languages. It was beautiful. And I just always have been so inspired by religion and mythology and things of the mystic, and being able to kind of project music through that lens was an awesome opportunity. I had a choir professor who went on, I guess, sabbatical. I know he took like a semester off, and they had a fill-in, and the guy, he was a fantastic singer, John Howell, his name is. And at the end of that semester, he walked up to me and he was like, I think you're really good, and I'd love to give you voice lessons.
Wow.
And I was like, and I'm not like, a lot of people will be like, voice, that's so offensive. You don't think I'm good enough? Are you kidding me? I think it's a huge compliment, because a teacher like desiring to extract something out of someone that they believe is there. It's kind of like Michelangelo carving the David. It's his kind of, you know, art form. And then when I was like 23, 24, I was like, I really need to figure this out because I'm performing a lot. And then I went into like really, really, really deep studying with him, weekly lessons for years. We still work together, not as frequently, but I would say I still try to meet with him weekly as kind of a voice coach at this point, kind of a check-in, and have him help me overcome certain things. And, you know, the pandemic threw everyone off, and I didn't really get the opportunity to chisel in my voice. At 2019, I spent 4+ months of the year touring. I was using my voice a lot, and then it was just like dead zone. So that, paired with all the kind of anguish of the pandemic, I didn't exhibit discipline, and I'm kind of getting back to that space where I'm like, okay, we gotta step it up. We gotta do this thing. But yeah, he has his PhD equivalent. I don't know what that is for musicians, in opera. So
right. Oh my God.
lens is through an operatic. I can't say I'm formally trained in opera, but I'm formally trained through operatic theory. So it's a lot of that kind of Italian origin, paired with a lot of similarities to what theater kids would be experiencing in their training.
Yeah.
So it's definitely different from pop. And every stage I've ever taken, touring across the country multiple times, everyone recognizes it, because there are just these specific isms to pop music and alternative music, and I don't really share them. So people walk up to me and they're like, "You're a singer. You're not just a singer, you're a singer." And the reason you might be experiencing technique is because I'm doing a lot of things that I can't naturally do, because I had to learn to do them.
Yeah.
And they're better. I'm better at it now, but I have to be a technician. Corvix and I talk about this a lot. He's so naturally gifted in so many of those things that like it's like, you know, he could do cartwheels, backflips, back handsprings. Me, I have to like, I'm thinking, I'm like shaking. But yeah, that might be why you're picking it up on a frequent basis when I sing.
No, 100% as well. I think what's nice as well as what you said is that, you know, that singing teacher and that vocal coach, I guess, could see potential in you, you know, and that's like, for all that you were saying that other people would look and be like, what, you tell me I need singing lessons? Like, how offensive. But it's the greatest honor, I think, you know, when someone sees that and sees that little glint of potential, like, oh, I could really like hone this and like really kind of, you know, help this person master their craft. I think that's incredible. And again, like, you know, with my dad being a trained opera singer, he used to talk to me about like the vocal lessons he used to do. Like he used to do crazy things when they had him like marching up and down like church pews whilst like going up and down scales just to get breath control and everything. It sounded nuts, but helped him to better himself, right? But yeah, it's for me, it's so interesting, and I can, coming from the theater and like, you know, doing a lot of musical performance myself, and obviously like with that experience with my dad, that's why I can recognize some of that with you. And when I hear that in your voice, I'm like, I can hear it. I hear it. There it is. And I love it. I just appreciate it because I know how hard you work for that, right? And like how many hours of repetition of things you've done for stuff like that. So I love it. I love it, and I love to hear that. And yeah, just like as well, like picking up on a little bit of what you said there. It's like what Whoopi Goldberg says in Sister Act 2. You know, you wake up in the morning and all you think about is singing, then you're a singer, girl. It's exactly that.
You wanna be somebody, you wanna go somewhere.
Love it.
That movie really got me through my life. You do
So
not understand.
oh my god, my dad loves those two films as well. So like me, I just know them inside out and back to front as well. Classics. But I want to ask you about, obviously you mentioned Pros and Icons. So obviously you spent some time with Pros and Icons. You know, you had that incredible opportunity when you're performing with those, like just name dropping like there was no tomorrow there. And then obviously now, you know, you've then progressed into King Vagabond. So just talk to me a little bit about, you know, you with Pros and Icons for a while. Obviously, now you're with King Vagabond, two very different sounds, I'm guessing very different aesthetics as well. So just talk to me a little bit about that process as well.
Pros and Icons was amazing. And when I had joined and started the band, there was just so much I didn't know about the music industry. There was so much I didn't know about myself. I actually love group projects. You know, I was never that kid in school who shied away from them, but I was usually the ringleader. I was usually the one who was running the study groups, if you will. I just enjoyed taking the reins. I like leading a pack of people. I I feel competent, and I know people can trust me. And I didn't really get to step into that role for a really long time because there was just so much I didn't know. And by the time years happened, we all kind of developed our own expertise, and there were just so many chefs in the kitchen. And the opportunities were fabulous. And the songs, so many of them I cherish and I love. But it did feel, as time progressed, more and more like we were experiencing creative compromise instead of collaboration.
Right.
And at the beginning of 2019, band member had left, and that was right before Pandemia Lovato hit. And then throughout the pandemic, a third member, I guess, reconfigured his choices in life and where he wanted to go, and we made a mutual divide in our journeys. And Nico and I asked ourselves, okay, what's happening? What's the deal? And we both kind of agreed, like, Pros and Icons actually started with 3 members, then went to 4, then went to 5, then went to 4, then went to 3, and then it was 2. We just felt like it was such a nice avatar for expression and learning. And it felt really like a vehicle to take us to where we are now. But with all that we had learned and all that we wanted to show, and we kind of occupied different hemispheres of expertise, Nico and I, it was a really beautiful marriage of elements to step into something. And I mean, I'll just, call a spade. I can be a little bit of a control freak with things, and I really had a vision for King Vagabond. It started out oddly as a novel idea. And I started writing the novel.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of literary allusion in our music, and there are very specific influences to what King Vagabond is inspired by. But I really sat during the pandemic, sat in a room and rocked back and forth in the corner is really what I did. But I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, who are you? What's the point? Why are you here? What are you doing? And it's easy to get caught up in a surface level of that. Like, I want to be a star. But it's much more difficult to strip back reality and the mechanism of society, which the pandemic did. And in a quiet room, ask ourselves who we want to be, or rather who we innately are. And I chose to lean into everything that made me, all the things that I would run away from. I chose to bridge the gap of myself as somebody who, similar to you, you were told at one point you had to make a decision. You had to be a performer or you had to be an artist. And I've similarly had those feelings. Am I a writer? I went to school for literature. I am inspired by literature. I deeply, deeply, deeply love it. Or am I an artist, a performer? And within all of that, what's the point of it? Why am I writing? Why am I performing? And I really decided that I really like to help people. And I know it sounds kind of corny and cheesy, but I am that person that when I'm in a room with somebody and I see potential in them, I'm like, hi, what's your story? What are you doing? We have this lovely makeup artist, Kellyanne, that I just I made a post about on our Instagram page. And she was working on one of Corvix's music videos at the stake. And she was doing amazing makeup on him. And I was like looking at her and I'm like, she is so cool. Like, she's so creative and so weird, but she looks normal, like normal.
Yeah.
And she's pretty and she's charismatic. I was like, in my head, I'm like, she could be on YouTube. She could have a YouTube channel. She can make it really big on YouTube. She can relate to a lot of people. So I started interrogating. I was like, have you thought about doing YouTube? I can teach you how to use YouTube analytics and I'll do all these things out. And she was like, I thought about it. I don't know. And I was like, you could do it. Believe me, I know you could do it. And it's just this kind of like innate feeling that I have. And I like to see people succeed, and I like to help people. And it goes back to that idea of, I feel like I'm a trustworthy figurehead to lead people. And I was like, why can't I do that with my music? By leading by example, by putting lessons into the songs. And the King Vagabond novel idea I had was very much rooted in that. And I felt like we were experiencing a shift, like a cognitive shift in society, in which we were kind of moving oddly away from this capitalistic Western ideological approach to life, this kind of competitive cut to the front of the line, give me more, Britney Spears. And but also we were kind of experiencing this like spiritual awakening, and I am a very spiritual person. So to see people kind of wake up to even things that, you know, people may or may not believe in, like witchcraft, astrology, tarot cards, different forms of divination, but just the idea that we are connected, which is what that all comes from. You know, the core of it is that we are all connected, we are all one, and we're kind of a form of consciousness that's split into different beings. Like I am you, you are me, we are one. And I felt like we've moved so far away from that I wanted to write a novel inspired by that. And I wanted this old god, mythologically inspired by Dionysus, who is an earth god. And I chose that depiction because aesthetically I've always connected to Dionysus, or Bacchus in Roman. But also he is an earth god, and in Greek folklore mythology, the earth gods, Demeter and Dionysus, actually died with the seasons. They're the only two gods that died. So humans ended up relating so deeply to them because the rest were kind of just like these tyrannical, crazy, unrelatable projections. Whereas Dionysus and Demeter were the, you know, I think it's Demeter, right? Yeah, because Persephone is Demeter's daughter, who's taken to Hades. So there was a lot of festivals around Dionysus, which is probably why he became not only the god of grapes, but the god of orgies. And there was just this kind of like androgynous whimsy to him with the curly hair. And it was just this, I don't know, just this very like poised, youthful, fresh human creature. I just really was always inspired by that imagery. And so in this novel idea, I was kind of possessed by this image of, in a post-apocalyptic world in which society has kind of lost its connection with other people, and the world has been made decrepit by pollution and all these other things, that he walks through the forest, a dead forest, and just trees and plants just sprout behind him. But he's kind of this villain at the same time, because he's going after the people and the things that have made the world this way. And so I was like, bitch, why can't that be me? why can't that be me? And I felt like it was. And I felt like I was like, why? And then, you know, the novel would enter a space where he would reach the main character, who necessarily wasn't King Vagabond, but kind of was King Vagabond, would reach this pool that was consciousness, and he would find a way to share it. And that is really deeply where King Vagabond came from. And I know that sounds so long-winded.
No,
and it sounds so bizarre and unexpected, but it's absolutely true. And there's so many nuances in it that speak to my experience, like this kind of like dark villain-esque approach, because growing up queer, I can only really relate to the villains because there's a very kind of queer overtone to all villain portrayals. And I have some songs that are coming out, and they kind of speak about that idea that I didn't really see myself in a lot of what I was watching. And a lot of people can feel that for different reasons, whether that be sexuality, race, etc. And I was like, let's be this kind of like villain anti-hero, you know, and I created a playlist called anti-hero vibes, because I was like, I want to, you know, sometimes you need to be Daenerys.
Right.
Sometimes that's what needs to happen for the world to be birthed anew. And I kind of felt like we were in that space as a society, and we were in a moment where we could rise from the ashes. And so I was like, King Vagabond it is. We're here. We're queer, and we ain't going anywhere.
I think to pick up on a few things that you said there, I mean, I think it's really important. And I think, you know, the pandemic taught us many different things, but like, especially as creatives and artists, I think one of the biggest things was what you said, Joey, which is when it allowed us to sit with ourselves and really question, right, what is it I'm doing? What is it I'm creating? Do I want to continue this? Have I got more to explore? Who really am I? What is it that I really want to say? And it allowed us to do so many different things in different ways, right? So, I mean, there's so much like media out there now that's coming out, which is not necessarily inspired by the pandemic, but is inspired by the time of which we had to sit with ourselves within the pandemic, right? So, I mean, it could be anything. I mean, you know, us doing this right now, this podcast came from, you know, me being locked in during the pandemic. Me doing the YouTube, finding you on YouTube came from doing stuff, creatively, like online, and that all started with the pandemic. And if that hadn't happened, realistically, would we have had the same space and same time for the length of time where we could really sit down with ourselves and really, chat to ourselves and really look introvertly and kind of ask ourselves, what is it that I want to do? And what do I want to create? Like, how do I want to express myself artistically? Right. And I think what's really interesting is, you were talking about, being an artist or being a writer. I think what you've really done is combine both together. So I think, your influence of writing, which I love, like literacy, I studied like English language as well. Like I love it. So I get it, that kind of almost losing yourself in a world of like, whether it's reading a book or whether it's writing or anything like that. I love that. It's like, it's entering a different world for like however long it is. And then you come back to reality, right? That's the way I see it anyway. But I think you've really taken that, and that really comes across with all of the imagery, and that comes from your, as you said, like your passion for religion, and like especially the Old Testament. By the sounds of it, there's those iconic images that we see linked to the Old Testament, and obviously other religions as well that we get within that, and that really breeds into King Vagabond. Like everything you've just said there, when you're talking, I can see it, right? I can hear the influence. I can see the influence.
I just have to explain it.
Yeah. But I love that because you're so impassioned by it. And, that is you, and you can see the direction. And even if I hadn't heard the music, I feel like I can picture it already. And I think that's incredible. And that's the best art bleeds into one another and really draws influence and creates its own thing. I think that's exactly what you're doing with King Vagabond. So honestly, how impassioned that you are in talking about it is fantastic because you believe it and allows us to see it. And I love that. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Of course. But talk to me about King Vagabond. So here we are, this incredible looking duo, the pair of you. I mean, obviously the getup right now is speaking volumes for King Vagabond, right? I love it. But yeah, talk to me about, so obviously you had this novel that you were writing, and then you thought, no, in fact, I'm going to do music with this. Obviously we've got this incredible type of this aesthetic with King Vagabond. I want to talk to you more about that. So kind of when you were chatting with Nico about it, how did you guys come to the agreement of, right, this is going to be our image. This is what we're going to like write about. This is going to be our focal point. This is what we're going to be.
I feel like that transition, it wasn't too meticulous. It wasn't too calculated, and it wasn't too, complicated. This is, especially for Nico, the way that he's expressing himself visually is very much akin to who he is deep down. And it speaks to our moments creatively in the past in which we felt stifled in compromise, working with people who, for their own reasons, and there's no negativity attached to this statement, but they just were unwilling to do things that we wanted to do, and because they saw themselves expressed differently.
Yeah.
And therefore there was compromise. And so we became this stilted version of ourselves, this very unfair representation of who we are in the world. There are definitely things that are explorative and that are new. I never wore makeup in Pros and Icons, but I've always loved queer culture and I've always loved makeup. And I spent a good time in my college years painting. So I was, I enjoy the motion of a brush. And I mean, I love drag queens and they're great, especially the alternative sort who are performance artists more so than anything. And I just think it's really awesome to become that which you think. I think it's a fun experience to become the projection of your subconscious. And that really was what I wanted to do. And that's where a lot of this came from. And, we do have educated decisions. I'm not going to sit here and be like, this is who I am. I like to, it is, but it also it's meticulous. I'm seeking to resonate with a specific audience, and this immediately speaks to them. And it's not me being disingenuous. I wouldn't do it if it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But I can crank the volume up a little bit, knowing that the people who would resonate well with King Vagabond's music will relate, and they'll look at me and they'll be like, I see myself in that human. And that's kind of the point of being a leader. And that's the point of being a spokesperson, and I'm not trying to be a martyr by any means, but it's the way to acquire and it's the way to build. And I think my music can really touch people if you're nasty. And I really think that it can. I need to make intentional decisions to get there. And so there are so many nuances in what we do, and the aesthetic was deeply inspired by that literary lens, inspired by the villainesque interpretation, but also just things that we like, things that I look at and I'm like, that's cool. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am, yes, Mary. But there's also like this shirt I've worn in Pros and Icons. Me doing these bracelets, this was very Pros and Icons-y for me to do. This shirt, however, is new. And what is that from? This, however, oh my god, it's from The Grinch. I love that scene. Scene. This, however, is new. Do you know The Grinch?
Yeah.
Oh my god, when she's oh my god, do you know what scene I'm talking about?
I do. I'm just laughing because like one of my favorite scenes is, you know, when he crashes the little car into the fire hydrant and he's like, it's gonna blow. It's like a tiny car, but it's got the biggest explosion, like the slow motion run. Jim Carrey.
Okay.
So good.
This is amazing. Okay. That to me, and I had this conversation with Corvix, that's one of our favorite movies. Like I would say that's probably my favorite movie of all time. I know that's really silly, but Corvix is also one of his. And we talk about this all the time. That movie is so gay. That movie is camp. It is so queer. It's like my second favorite movie, like as an adult, is Bridesmaids, and it like fits into that world of humor. It's so dramatic and it's so outrageous, and that's Jim Carrey is one of my absolute favorite actors for that reason. He just sees society for what it is, and he's like, I'm gonna make fun of that. We're gonna go there. And the scene with her with the she's like this epitome of womanly stereotype, like cougar realness. It's amazing. Anyway, this, however, is new. And I just, to go back to the aesthetic of things, I just kind of cranked the volume. So I don't see it as widely different, but I guess objectively people weren't in my brain. Sorry, I have so much hairspray in my hair. For everyone listening, I am touching my hair a lot. I don't know. I really wanted to take it to an imaginative level, because what are artists for if not entertainment? And distraction. And it's also permission. Not enough people told me in my life that I can do what I want to do. So much so that even till today, more people tell me I can't than I can. And fuck that. Fuck that. I'm not about that life. We're not doing that. And King Vagabond is this kind of there is a sense of adolescence to it. There is a sense of fire, because it's a reclamation. It's wise and it's mature, but it's also somewhat surface, in that I'm letting the little boy that didn't get to be himself be himself. And everyone else should do the same right now. Like go scream out your window, I want my money and I need it now. That's a commercial here in the States. I don't know if that's it. Okay.
No.
There's a commercial where people open their windows and they want like their tax refunds or something. And it's just this stupid commercial.
I mean, I'm going to do it out this window right now.
I want my money. Everyone together. Okay. Yeah. So I forgot what you asked me, but I know we're talking about King Vagabond, the aesthetic, and yeah, it's the subconscious, I guess.
I mean,
that's the space.
That makes sense to me. I think one of the big things is authenticity, right? Which you were kind of leaning towards there. And that comes, I mean, everything we've just said, the whole conversation we've just had, like, your inspirations from, literacy and all of that, and the written word, and like, the iconography of like, religious symbology and everything like that. And then you see King Vagabond, it's so authentic because
iconography was Pros and Icons' first EP title.
Oh my God, really?
I don't think my bandmates understood why. I was like, this is a good idea. Let's do it. I like it. But we're here.
Yeah, there we are. We're there. We're bringing it back.
Reality now.
I know. Shit got real. But no, I think, it is authentic. And you can see that. And, it's not like you've just decided you've looked like, I don't know, flicked through a magazine and thought, oh, that looks cool. Let's give that a go. It's like, it comes from you, right? So you're not just seeing this thing and just going, oh, let's try that. If that doesn't work, then whatever. Like, this is you putting yourself out there. And I think that's it's one of the bravest things, because anybody who does anything to an audience opens himself up to criticism, but also opens himself up to, an audience, right, that they connect with. And I think that's the most important thing. Um, like really kind of you being you allows the people that you really want to speak to come to you, right? And I think that's incredible. And you can see that with your music and like, the way that you like present yourself and all of that. I mean, I'm such a fan. And like there's a lot of that I love as well. Like I love that, the iconography, and everything like that. Like even just the pictures with you on the Rule the World single, like the cover with the sword, like that for me just says everything. I mean, I love the Arthurian legend, the sword and the stone, all of that. That is my jam. So that's why I kind of feel like what's so interesting about King Vagabond, and obviously I've only heard one song, but just from the conversation that we're having is with that literacy aspect. You get so many albums where every song's different. Every song might be written for a different reason, or it might just be like, hey, we've written 50 songs, let's just put 12 of them together and make an album, which is fine.
Yeah.
No shade. But this feels like almost like the form of you reading a novel, but it's in music form. So we've got Rule the World. We've got Rule the World. This is like chapter 1. What are we going to get next? And I think that's so interesting.
You're so keen of mind. You really are. Your assessments, I mean, I watch reactions historically a lot, and not like very many different people, but there's like certain people that I'm like, I love them. And usually they're the boisterous, loud, kind of like me.
Yeah.
But you have this very inquisitive approach, and you very quickly pick up on what somebody's putting down. And that's not easy. You are analytical.
Yeah.
And you really, and Corvix has said this as well, you really do understand where we're coming from. And it's extremely rare to experience that. So thank you for being such an incredible audience member. It really makes us feel like, I mean, I don't have a very big audience right now. King Vagabond's brand new. So for somebody to already be getting it is like kind of awesome. Obviously,
well.
you're a special case. This is essentially what you do for a living. But and you do it very well.
Thank you.
But it's still interesting to, especially you talk about the album cover, which nobody really got to experience because they weren't on set. And I'm going to post behind the scenes pictures and stuff and videos, but we actually bought a picture frame on
nice
Facebook Marketplace, and we hung it from the ceiling, and we filmed that. Like I'm actually sitting in a picture frame. So in the music video where that scene happens, it's a legitimate, it's as is on the album cover. And I was directly influencing iconography, in that it is that image specifically was inspired by Michelangelo Caravaggio paintings. And I love, he's probably my favorite artist of all time. But I not only studied his work formally when I was in undergrad, but I also went to Florence in undergrad and I studied art history there. And then Corvix and I went back in 2019, and I don't think I ever saw Caravaggio's when I was in Florence the first time. So the second time I was like, we're doing it, we're going, it's happening, we're going. And I did, and I saw them, and it's just like this, deeply macabre space. He was running away from, I don't know if he committed murder. I don't remember if he committed murder or if he was accused of committing murder, but he was running away from the government. And he was taking religious imagery and creating very well-known biblical scenes and putting himself in them. And in a lot of them, he was dead or dying. And he has this amazing picture of, I think it's David with Goliath's head, but it's actually him with his own head.
Right.
And I just looked at his work, and I was like, at a young age, and I was like a young adult age. And I was like, I'm seeing his subconscious, that like isolated space where we think from. That's kind of scary, where like anxiety happens, where fear happens, that space where we're like, what happens after life? Let me think about it. And it's just like black.
Yeah.
That's so I'm kind of like oddly obsessed with that. And I'm a very anxious human. And I'm constantly thinking about that kind of experience and, what happens next and all these different very macabre thoughts. So when I see artists that really tap into that, and I've expressed this before, but there was one Pros and Icons song, and there is upcoming a King Vagabond song that feels like the frequency of, if, at least to me, if you are dead and like floating over Earth, and you're like getting these bird's eye view telescope imagery into the moments of your life. So it's like whimsical and it's sad, but it's also amazing and like heartwarming.
Mm.
It's this kind of really deep, bittersweet nostalgia. And I'm in a very minute level, well, not probably in minute level, but I have experienced death, and I've seen family members moments after. I sadly was with Corvix when he put his dog to sleep last year, and I was in the room and I watched, the fleeting moment when the soul left the body. And I don't know why, but that space makes sense to me. An artist like Caravaggio captured that,
Mm.
and I've sought to capture that as well, as bizarre as that is. Again, like I said, music is something that very mildly influences me. It's
Mm.
so many other things that instruct the art I create, which I think goes beyond music. I think musicians, my favorite ones, are three-dimensional. It's never simply a song. It's
Yeah.
always way deeper. And I really wanted to curate a brand, an image, and a style that was just so innately me, that touched upon all the nuances that I've had the fortune to speak about in this conversation. So thank you.
No, thank you. First of all, it's nice to hear that I'm picking up and I'm on the right track for starters. That's really lovely. I mean, we just talk the same language, honey. That's what it is. But but no, honestly, thank you for your kind words. But yeah, just everything you've said comes across there. Everything, like, from looking at the artistic pieces. I mean, your t-shirt you're wearing right now looks like a piece of art. Like right there. Look at it. There it is. It is a painting,
also
literally.
see-through, so that's all I'm gonna
I'm like, those nipples always in the painting? No, joking. But
she has a nipple on her face.
but yeah, like I get that, and that for me, even just seeing that picture, of you in the frame with the sword is just it just, yes, I get it. I listened to the song, I get it. And I want to ask you about the song, and let's come on to this. So your first single with King Vagabond, Rule the World. Now, I mean, the title itself is so loaded to start with, right? And obviously I want to ask you about that, but basically, Joey, just tell me all about the song.
Sure. Oh, fun. It's so hard to have like a concise answer to these questions, because to me they're just so layered.
Mm.
Rule the World is, on the surface, me saying, and this, to go back to what I was just saying about that like kind of life or death, if you will, feeling. That's I am so anxiously inspired by that frequency. I feel like all my decisions are life or death.
Mm.
When I'm like, what should I eat for dinner? I'm like, I have to call my mom. I have to ask Anthony. I can't make this decision. And I know that sounds silly, but it's sometimes that's true. Where I'm like, I really feel like this decision is going to impact. It's domino, and if I make a certain decision now, it will influence decisions down the road.
Mm.
And I don't actually think that in my head, but like the frequency of emotion is like, but a lot of these songs are very life or death in essence. And Rule the World expresses a frequency of me having done this for so long now and saying, I want to do it. And the chorus refrain is, I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to wake from this dream. I want to rule the world. i.e., I don't want to wait any longer. I want this to happen. And I don't want to wake up from this dream. I don't want to quit. I don't want to have to say, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do that.
Mm.
And I like, in song structure, at least how I write oftentimes now as a songwriter, and a lot of the upcoming records, I like to create something infectious and simple in chorus, something that is catchy and that people can move to and easily remember, because I want them streams. But it's also, it's nice to immediately know a song.
Yeah.
But I don't like when songs just do that. So I like to balance that out with something that's a little more poetic in the verses. And I've always been that way thus far as a songwriter. Some songs are variations of that, but I would say if there was like a simple formula for how I write melody, it's typically that and lyrics. The verses are much more somber. They feel more mid-tempo. The opening line, "Drive myself into the night," is meant to pair with the sonic quality that I think this is a song you could listen to while driving, especially at night. Um, Nico and I agreed to that when the song was written. We felt like that was the vibe. So I thought using the word drive was extremely instructive because it has a subconscious toll on the mind. You think drive, so when you're driving in a car, you're like, okay. And there's also the idea of driving into the darkness of yourself, and we've spoken about that now, so I don't have to explain that any further. But drive myself into the night where demons hide. The demon trope is somewhat simple, but again, this is life or death for me. And King Vagabond is a mythological creature. He's the avatar projection of my subconscious, and those are the influences that inspire me. You know, I love not only mythology and Renaissance art, but sci-fi, horror literature, and movies that make you think, that kind of creep you out. Books that keep you on the edge of your seat. One of my favorite authors is Jeff Vandermeer. I don't know if you know his works, but he is in that sci-fi horror space. He wrote the book series that became the movie Annihilation.
Okay.
Which, if you have not seen, you should. It's lovely. And that kind of, there's always this kind of magical realism. There's this mystical touch to reality. So the inclusion of demons and stuff, I needed to talk about something that was of that world. A feverish high, you know, this is kind of like that internal space where you're like not really with it. You're just kind of driving deep into that space of anxiety. And then I refer to the Great Divide in the first verse, which also speaks about the divide of where King Vagabond came from, a response, a byproduct of the world and the divide happening in the world, but also what I think is the solution to that, which is the point of the song, which is the division of self. And I then amp people up in the second verse after the momentum is picked up, after it's not this very low driving synth, and I start talking about literary heroes, Joan of Arc, Constantine. I talk about Hercules. I say young Herc in Lion's Eye, slaying the lion was the first of his 12 labors. So it was like the beginning of his journey, and I feel like this is the beginning of my journey. So I thought it was important to put that in the first single. The music video is also a projection of that storyline, from vagabond to king, and becoming the king of the vagabonds, the leader of the wanderers, those who kind of feel like they're in the in-between, not necessarily those who identify with an extreme group, those who are the inquisitive thinkers of today that question everything and say, I don't belong, something's not right. And the extreme groups to me is the divide, and I don't like that. So I like the space in the middle, and I feel like people are afraid to talk about those people. And I'm more a proponent of us kind of owning our own shit and looking inward and bridging that gap within ourselves. And ultimately, I think the way to do that is to conquer your inner demons, to slay your darkness. Slay. But if not destroy it, become friends with it. Accept it as part of yourself and live life with it so that you can become one. And then you can become the ruler of your world. You can become your own creator, and you can make a life you want. You cannot ever be victim to circumstance again, because you are the creator of your world. And that speaks to a spiritual space, and it speaks to the spiritual space that inspired King Vagabond. The literary influence you can hear in the spoken word bridge, which was an interesting moment. And I'm happy that I made that decision. And you might hear more of that in our future down the road. But I wanted these songs to feel like fairy tales, which are also known as cautionary tales, which were lessons that were shared with people back when people couldn't read and write, but they just told stories to teach lessons to each other. And I wanted this kind of lesson embedded in the song, telling people that you can become one. And there's a lot of, other layers of darkness, light, they meet, unite, but there's this ultimate message that it's about the unification of self,
Mm.
that there is darkness and lightness. Hello. There's darkness and there's a light. Come on, welcome to the stage. In all of us, and we don't recognize nor acknowledge. We always blame some else, and that's not the way this world will be fixed, or at least be better, is if we can resolve internally. And become the creators of our worlds and the rulers of our worlds. It's not me saying I am king, it's saying I am king, you are king, king is we are one, consciousness is us, and we are the creators of this reality. And poised in a simple mythological Arthurian inspired narrative, with this driving beat that makes you want to dance, because contrary to what you like in life, Adam, who doesn't like to dance, everybody.
Whoa, don't be calling me out. There are certain tracks in life that I don't appreciate, but yeah, a lot of them tend to be dance music, but yeah.
Well, we have a dance influence. And that's why we kind of say we're all pop. I think that's the umbrella, but electropop is also part of our genre, because I think that electronic pop influence does have, it instructs a lot of what we do. In some form. It might not be the primary, and there might be a lot of nuances that are supposed to take the spotlight over it. Yeah, the combination of the both. And I like that it makes you want to move, because I feel like this life needs a little more fun, especially after the last few years.
I agree. I think, first of all, to defend myself, I don't hate to dance. I just want to put that out there right now. It's more like, okay, so Jory and I had this conversation like away from obviously this podcast, but for me, dance music is really interesting, where I'm not a huge fan of it, because I find it quite, I don't know, I can find a lot of dance music really soulless. I just find it where it's just written for a very particular moment to get people moving on the dance floor. And I don't know, that's fine. That's fine. People can, people vibe on that. So, dance music has just always been a genre that, I don't know, for me, I've just never connected with. And I don't know why. Like, don't get me wrong, when it comes on a night out and everything, I've had a couple of drinks, I'm up there on the dance floor having the best time. Of course I am. But like, to sit down and listen to, like, I don't know, like, it's never a genre I would just be like, oh, I'm going to put this on. But I think what speaks to me more, don't get me wrong, there are certain dance tracks I adore. And I think for me, what really attracts me to it is when there's more to it than just being like a continuous beat for 5 minutes. And I think, like, for example, your song, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, I just think everything you've just spoken about there, everything that you've just spoken about there, it's so multi-layered, right? So even the title, like, Rule the World, I think in essence, it's like, it's talking to somebody saying like, you're talking about their world, your world, take control of your world, right? So like, rule the world is like, that's almost the message that you say to yourself, you've got to rule the world. This is your world, take command, take charge, right? And I think, you can hear all of that. And you talk about like, the lyrics, which is so like, you've obviously made the decision to write these lyrics, and every single lyric means something. It's not just putting in words, which a lot of dance music does, where it's just repetition of the same words again and again because it goes with the beat. Whereas I think what you've done is you've really sat down, you've thought about every single lyric. And it comes back to that storytelling. And I think storytelling is such an art form which, predates the written word. Jesus is famous for storytelling with messages in, right? And that predates the written word. And I think what's so interesting is that, you've really thought about that and really brought it in with your literary influences. You can hear that in the lyrics, they're really well chosen and really well written, but as well, it's speaking, it's saying something. And I think that's why I gravitate towards it more. Plus, that beat, that 80s synthness to it, I absolutely love. I love that 80s synth sound. I really, really do. And it's a nice mixture as well, where you say it's like calmer during the verses, you get everybody up dancing during the chorus, and then you've got that incredible spoken word section as well. So it's like a nice mixture of different parts of like just great pieces of music, really. So yeah, so just to defend myself a little bit, but I think it's such a standout, perfectly chosen first like launch song as well. It really kind of, it shows off who you guys are, the type of obviously music that you're leaning towards as well, but also everything else underneath that, the full aesthetic, what you're writing about, what you're trying to say, what you're telling us. And I think it works really, really well. And I'm super pumped for the rest of the album and to hear more tracks.
Well, thank you. We have singles planned for the entire year,
Cool.
and we've been preparing for a long time. Since right before the pandemic, we were writing a lot of music, and then there were just identity shifts that kind of prevented us from releasing anything, or finishing rather anything. The next single is a little bit on the more the dancier side. It is less branded, it is less serious, but it is still that kind of life or death perspective, specifically about the kind of independent artist journey in the music industry. And that was one of the older songs that we've had for a really long time. And we love it so deeply, and we wanted to make it part of this discography. And there is something very, like I've said many times, there is something queer about our brand, and it's because of me. And I spent a lot of my youth in clubs. I felt euphoric on a dance floor. Like, they would make dance circles around me, and I mean, not that I'm any bit of amazing dancer, but there just was this kind of euphoria that I would experience. And I find myself still listening to songs that have that influence. So, and Nico loves electronic music, and
Right.
as a producer, he enjoys producing it. So he's influenced by that as well, although we have so many different varied layered influences as individuals, and King Vagabond specifically. But yeah, the next song will be definitely more of a bop in that regard, but it still is very King Vagabondy, and it fits into our discography really well. And then we'll be releasing songs for the whole rest of the year. So
Nice, exciting. I'm looking forward to hearing the next one, and obviously all the others as well. I'm super pumped for it, and I can't wait to hear more. And I'm sure
semi nervous for you to hear the next
but
one. I
anyone,
think you'll like it.
no. I'm sure I'll love it. I'm sure I'll absolutely love it. But yeah, I think anyone who's like listened to the first track as well will be super pumped for it. And as I say, if you haven't listened to Rule the World yet, go and listen to it, because honestly, it's a banger. It's a bop. I want to ask you as well, Joey. So obviously, you and Nico, you're like an independent duo, right? Like King Vagabond, that must come with challenges in the music industry, and it comes with some blessings and burdens. Obviously, artistic freedom, I guess, is a big one. And like, it sounds like you guys work really well together as a unit. You understand each other. You bring in both of your passions into that, which, electronic music, and then like all of the influences you've talked about as well, which is fantastic. And I love that when you get that cohesion of like artistry. But obviously, it must come with challenges and everything like that as well, I'm guessing, within the bigger music industry. So talk to me a little bit about that. Like, how do you work through, well, how do you cope and work through them?
I mean, it's definitely helpful to be with a partner in it. Corvix, I've witnessed his journey as a solo independent artist, and it's a different experience. It's very similar. The Venn diagram has way more in the middle than on the outskirts, but there are very specific differences, and some of them are great and some of them are not so great, because he's able to just make any decision he wants, and I have to, as well as Nico, we have to talk about them together. We can't make decisions without coming to an agreement. And there's also a lot of business decisions that are made within the process of being in a duo that are challenges, especially when you're not making money based on what you do, but you hope that you're preparing yourself for the one day that you do. The independent industry right now is in a very bizarre state, and I like to see everything as perspective, because social media, especially with apps like TikTok, allow us to be seen by the world. We have the opportunity to be seen by the world. However, it becomes a rat race, and artists often feel the need to follow trend instead of be artists. And subsequently, it is detracting from artistry, which is supposed to be a compounded, nuanced, authentic filter by which a human perceives reality and
Right.
then expresses that through a craft. If you are so intentional and so meticulous, it does make it a little soulless, which you were saying before about dance music and how certain songs could be simply for one reason, yet thrive, soar, and artists who have many reasons are being eclipsed, which it stings. But it's challenging, the independent music space. But the music space, I think, was always challenging. And I do believe we're moving away from an archaic thought process. I think we're in transition, and that's why it's dangerous right now, and it's bizarre. But the music industry, in terms of profit, from what I know, I don't know how accurate I am, but in the 90s is when the music industry started declining in terms of profit, at least in America. In the 90s, the latter half of the 90s is when we saw a lot of these very meticulously crafted acts, people who should not have been performing or would not have been performing earlier. And some of them are amazing. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm a Britney stan. I love her to death. I love her music. The boy bands of the time, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, we entered a space in which the brand became more important than the talent. And I know I have my opinions about the girl, but Christina Aguilera, in comparison to Britney Spears, there is no question who's more talented. There's no question.
Yeah.
And yet Britney Spears far exceeded Christina Aguilera's success because the business side of the industry became so important. The brand, the story, how much artists are being talked about. Even to today, we see artists experiencing that. One artist in particular, who is one of my all-time favorites, Jessie J, suffers from good singer syndrome. She can sing on anything.
Yeah.
She literally could sing the telephone book. And she's going to sound amazing because her zone of genius is singing. She's on another planet in the department of vocals. It's truly, she's an alien. She's also lovely. But she's never been so meticulous and so intentional. And her career has, even though she has a wild success, she is a humongous industry success. She's still one of the most streamed artists on Spotify. I know I've seen her so many times live. I've been lucky enough to share the same spaces with her. I think I've seen her live 7 times.
Wow.
Yeah, and big performances, small performances. And she's spoken about her perception of music and how she struggled, essentially. She's been very open about that with her crowds. And when she was doing the more pop stuff, she was doing better in terms of industry numbers. Not that that's success, because success is relative. And for her, that wasn't success because she didn't love it. But I know I see her kind of like fumbling to pick up the ball now. And it's like, I think she should be up there with Whitney Houston and Celine Dion. There's no question. But there's less of a story. Ariana Grande, another human who has amazing vocal talent in today's music, there's more intention behind her brand. There's more to bite down on. There's more stories behind her. And that is how people become successful in today's world. And so that influences independent artists, because we feel like we have to follow that metric of success, that example, but it's unrealistic to us. As much as Elon Musk has really great financial capabilities, I'm not going to take advice from him because I can't. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. I can't relate to him.
Yeah.
He cannot tell me what to do with my money because we're on 2 different planets.
Yeah.
So independent artists are in a similar space where we now have to build our own wealth, if you will. And we don't have a label or whatnot to get us there. And most of the time, a label today isn't going to take an artist unless they're already established or if they know somebody, because it's too much of a chance in an industry that doesn't profit.
Yeah.
And most artists who are taken up by labels, they're shelved. So it's even a scary thing, especially at my age. If I'm picked up by a label, hypothetically, I do run the risk of being shelved. And then I have years of being on a contract and I can't do anything without their permission. They're not letting me do anything, which is a reality of the industry. I wouldn't say it's something that is spoken about a lot. I don't know how common it is right now, but that is for sure an experience many independent artists have experienced when they take the industry route. So then we're left with, how do we do it on our own with no budget? And then you have to take to social media, and then you have to play a game. So how do you, as an independent artist, speak authentically while figuring out how to work these metrics and get in front of people to be the difference, you know? And it's hard, and very few figure it out. And time will tell if King Vagabond has that down. We'll find out. That's, I guess, in a nutshell, what I feel about the struggles of independent artistry right now. I am very fortunate that I can be an artist. So I will say that. I'm fortunate that I'm in a space that I've struggled through all of this to extract my own voice and my own message and my own brand. I hope people understand it, or rather, I hope people enjoy it. And I hope the people who understand it buy front row tickets to my shows.
Hey, I'll be right there, honey, right at the front.
I hope so.
Right at the goddamn front. But just to pick up on a few things that you said there, Joey, which I think is, I mean, everything you said there was fantastically true. You know what I mean? It's not an industry which I work in, but kind of doing like little bits of, you know, me dipping my toe into the pond, so to speak. I see it and I understand it, you know? So like everything you said there, it's almost like an act of tethering on, you know, the success of what does really well, was also without losing yourself, right? And I think what's really interesting, I was talking about this recently with my partner, and we were talking about Aurora actually. And so when Aurora first started, you know, I don't want to get too much into Aurora, but I will just say comparatively to link to what you were saying, she writes her own music. She's been writing music since she was 9 years old, right? Writes her own lyrics, writes her own literal music on the piano. And on her first album, she was forced to write a more upbeat, pop-sounding, radio-friendly song. So she wrote the song Conqueror, right? And that had like other writers that were on that as well. Now, she has actively come out and said she's not a fan of the song. You know, it doesn't speak to who she is. It was written for that purpose alone, which kind of goes a little bit back into what I meant about dance music, just a little bit. But in one of the documentaries, when she talks about it, the producer's there saying to her, I think you should close the show with Conqueror. It's a hit. It's radio friendly. Everybody. And she's like, no, I don't want to do it. I'm not doing it. It's not me. And she chooses to finish the show with a ballad, Infections of a Different Kind, which is a beautiful song. And the audience go wild for it. And she was right. You know, because she knew that's what the audience
better than her.
Exactly right. And that's the same with you guys, though. You know, like, you know what, because you are speaking to a very particular audience, which will grow and more will come to you because, you know, hello, like people are only human, right? But you will know what to say to the audience and what they will want to hear. And also they'll kind of imprint back on you as well. That's how artistry works, right? And I think that's incredible. And I just think, yeah, it can be such a hard balancing act where you try and find the right balance of, you know, finding the success, but in your own way. And I think that can be really hard when you take little bits of what is popular, what does well. But again, as I said earlier, without losing yourself entirely. But I think what you're doing is working damn well. Keep doing what you're doing because honestly, you're going places, man. Honestly, you guys are going places. And I hope that if this podcast and this episode does, you know, allows even just a smaller percentage of the audience to listen to your music and to go out there and experience it, then, you know, that's a success straight away. Like more people need to hear your music. It's just incredible. To link into Jessie J a little bit, did you see when she did the talent show in China? That was of course you did. So when she covered
she proved she's one of the greats because people can't sing Whitney Houston and Celine Dion and do it.
Yes,
she really.
Yep. Oh my God,
she really did amazing.
My mom is one of like her favorite singer in the world is Whitney Houston. Like I was brought up listening to Whitney Houston. One Moment in Time is one of my favorite songs of all time. It's one of them, you know, when you have them songs that like give you goosebumps. Every time I hear One Moment in Time, it's that every time. Anyway, So like I listened to it to Jessie J, obviously covering Whitney, and I was like, I need my mom to listen. Put it on. I was like, what do you think of this, mom? Don't say anything proud. Don't, for God's sake, don't talk over the top of it. Just sit down and just listen, start to finish. And afterwards, she was like, oh my God, she is phenomenal. And I was like, yeah, I know. It's as you said, Joey, like it takes a very particular voice to be able to cover Whitney damn well, and she's got it.
Yeah.
But I love Jessie J, and I get it. She's underappreciated. She really is. You know, I mean, it's not about the money, money, money. I get that. And you know, Party in the USA wrote that song. She wrote that song, and obviously Miley Cyrus made it this humongous hit. But yeah, in terms of talent, she's phenomenal. I get it, man. She's brilliant.
She scared me. I actually never got the chance to formally meet her because I was scared.
Really?
She was right in front of me multiple times.
Intimidated a little
backstage at shows. I wouldn't walk up to her. I couldn't. I felt unworthy. It's even, you know, I'm sure that moment on the VMAs was staged, but Nicki Minaj did Bang Bang with Ariana Grande, Jessie J. And Ariana Grande, in terms of industry success, is that bitch. And Nicki Minaj, afterward, when she had the wardrobe malfunction, she was like, it's me, Jessie and Ari, whatever she was doing. I love Nicki Minaj. She, huge Nicki stan here. Can you tell I'm gay? She was talking in an interview or something, and she like did a documentary on that time, and she was like, I'm so embarrassed. I'm performing with Jessie J. and I don't know if those were the exact words she said, but it was along those lines. And in my head, I'm like, she didn't say Ariana. She said Jessie J. That's the level of respect that people in the industry have for her. I don't know if that was meticulously said. I don't know if Nicki just spoke freely and that's just how she perceives Jessie J's talent, which probably is accurate. But she's a giant. I mean, she walked on stage, she did her little Jessie did that little thing. I love her to death. I think she's fabulous.
Oh, she's one of the greats.
Unrelatable because she's an alien. But
yeah, she's
also dating an alien. So.
Yeah, right. So you just gravitate towards aliens. Even like will.i.am on when she was on The Voice in the UK, like said when he was talking about like singers that have, you know, those special voices, and he was like, he even turned and he was like, you know, Jessie, you're one of those singers who's got one of the voices, and she was like, you know, oh, thanks very much, William. But
I don't think she believes it. I really don't think she believes it.
No, she hasn't. I don't think she understands how good she is. But I mean, we'll see what happens with her future as well. But getting back to you guys, I mean, I could talk about Jessie J all day, but anyway, I think one of the main things that you've picked up on really with your journey, kind of being a performer, is that freedom of expression. You know, like stepping out and just being the authentic you, which I am a huge advocate of. You know, obviously being a queer person, it's a narrative that I share as well, right? And I think it's a narrative that a lot of queer people share. And when we get that moment when we can stand out and just be ourselves and stand proud and stand freely, there's so much power behind that, you know, and that's a moment that we embrace and take. And a lot of people don't have that narrative and sometimes don't understand how important that moment is. So I think, honestly, as a queer person, to see another queer person doing that, I always say more power to you. It's inspiring to see always. But talk to me about, you know, from the beginning, right up to where you are now. What would you say has been some of the biggest learning points for you on this journey?
I mean, I think the biggest lesson I've spoken about, which is just, and it's like, so it's one of those things that, you know, you just say, and it's like, what does that even mean? But to just be myself, permission. I mean, there's moments on stage where I've cracked my voice, where I've messed up lyrics that were huge lessons to me to train more, to rehearse more. There were moments in songwriting that I would listen back to songs and be like, oh, why did I write that? You know, particularly heteronormative lyrics.
Right.
When I was in Pros and Icons, because I was too afraid to be openly gay publicly, as well as I didn't want to feel like a dictator, and I didn't want to feel like I was performing gay songs in a band of straight guys. So that paired with pandering my choices to what I thought would be successful, as well as, you know, making decisions. I'm really bad at that. Really bad at that. And we've already said that. Legitimately can't decide what I want to eat for dinner every night. But when it comes to a business, trusting the ride, trusting that you are moving to your destination so long as your decisions have intention, and so long as, like a good book, or as you would say, like a good book, the author writes the beginning after writing the ending.
Mhm.
So knowing where you're going and then meticulously driving to that destination. And if certain decisions take you on detours, enjoy the ride. Sightsee for a little bit. Don't rush it. We got one trip on this little planet of ours. And if we're constantly thinking about the past or constantly thinking about the future, we fail to be in this moment, right here and now. We fail to have mindfulness and to be within the consciousness that is what we are all connected by. And, you know, there's moments where I just stop, and I've been doing it a little bit throughout our conversation. I just look at the birds and I look at their patterns, and I see them kind of just flying back and forth, doing their thing, living in the moment. But there's a rhythm to what they do. And they're one of life's simplest life forms, you know, one of life's oldest life forms. Evolution took them to simplicity. So if we're so caught up in where we're moving all the time, we miss the whole point of it. And that's a huge lesson I've learned, and that influences the decisions I make as an artist. That I am also a business owner. I'm running a company, and I need to deliver what the business needs in that fiscal quarter, if you will. So I can't be in paralysis by analysis. I gotta start it. I gotta get it done, you know? Imposter syndrome's huge. I feel like an imposter every day of my life. I don't know why, but I do. And it's the comparative metrics of social media, I think. I do feel like a fraud when I see other people that are doing more faster, who are younger than me. So leaning into the idea that we all have our own journeys, we all have our own stories, and that they're all valid and they're all valuable. And there are people looking at you with jealous eyes. So there is much for you to be fortunate about as a human, as an independent artist. And to remind myself that there was a time in my life, 21 years, majority of my life, in which I never thought I was gonna be able to do this because I was too scared. And that things started happening when I faced that fear head on, and I just started acting in spite of it. And I think that's how things happen in life. I don't know if I'd lead by example all the time in that department because I'm very fearful. I'm a very scared person when it, you know, deep down, I'm very apprehensive in my choices. But I try my best to be intentional in spite of fear. I don't think fearlessness exists. I think people who are fearless are sociopaths. So yeah, it's just a matter of fighting it face on, which takes us back to rule the world. You know, you can never rule your world unless you take that trip inward and you start asking yourself deep questions and answering them.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. That's so insightful as well, Joey, about that. I think it's one of the things where, you know, if I think about being an artist, you know, like you can get so caught up in, right, we're on a tour, we're going to go from this place to this place. We've then got an interview here. We've got to do this. We've got to do this.
Oh
and it
I've
can
literally
be like,
lived that life. It's exhausting.
Right. So it's like your life is almost in fast forward. And it is that moment of when you haven't got time to even, or haven't purposely thought about making time to press pause. And it's beautiful what you said there in the moment when you were like, I'm just, during our conversation, I'm watching the birds and like taking in that moment. It takes me back to in the very first podcast episode I did of this podcast, and I spoke to a life coach called Zach Rance, and he was talking very much about that as well, taking time to pause and just not even just appreciate, just kind of pause for a second and just enjoy the moment, as what you said so eloquently earlier on. But it was like my best friend came over, and like he works a really erratic job. He works for the NHS, so can you imagine what that was like during the pandemic? So,
Absolutely.
oh my God. So he came over and he was like, oh, like, well, we were just chatting. He was very quiet. And he was like, do you mind if we just sit outside on the balcony for like 5 minutes? I was like, yeah, sure. We sat on the balcony, didn't say anything to each other for like 20 minutes. And we just looked out. And I'm so fortunate where I've got like a view of the river. So we just sat and we just watched the birds like leave the trees, fly. Like some of them landed on the river. We watched like other birds fly in. We watched the wind blow through the trees. And it was like this theater for us. You know what I mean? That this happens every day. But yet, because we get so caught up in the motion of our lives and we've got this to do, we've got this endless list of things to do, we kind of miss those moments. So we miss those opportunities to just sit and just enjoy the stillness of everything that's happening around us. And I think that's so important. And I think that's such an interesting life lesson, kind of what you said there as well, so beautifully, which is, when you have those moments on your journey, when you are in fast forward, when you've got everything going on, just appreciate and enjoy the moments of stillness. Appreciate where you are, where you've come from. Sometimes it's so important to retrospectively look back to where you were and where you are now and just enjoy that moment. And there's no time limit on that. And when you're ready to pick back up, pick back up. But it's so important to take those moments, right? To just pause.
I think that one word that really stood out to me the most throughout the last few years is, and that's instructed my choices in King Vagabond, which speaks to what we're speaking to now, is the idea of alignment. And there's alignment in terms of the intentional stuff, like marketing, aligning a brand with the self, aligning the self with the self, aligning my decisions with who I am as an individual, but also aligning with the now and connecting with the now. I think we forget in this hyper technological world that we're animals and we are gifted with consciousness, but we are more than consciousness. And there is a part of us that's primal, and that should be looking to the birds and the trees and taking walks and calming down. Our brains can only handle so much.
Yeah.
This coming from somebody who's probably spent 40 hours playing Elden Ring in the last 2 months.
No shame from me. I love that. Love that. All right. So, Joey, I asked you prior to the podcast to pick. This is the Geek Out with the Guest section. Okay. So, I asked Joey to pick 5 of his favorite moments in music. Now, this can be a song that he loves. It can be an album that he loves. It could be a music video and just appreciation for an artist in general. But I asked you to pick 5. I don't know them. And I was kind of torn on the idea of, should I ask for them? Should I? I was like, you know what? Let's just have it as a surprise. So I have no idea what Joey's going to pick here. Not a clue. But I'm excited and I'm ready. So when you are ready, Joey, give me your first one.
Well, I've cheated because two people, Jessie J and Celine Dion, especially My Heart Will Go On, I feel like those two are very instructive artists in my journey.
Okay.
But I'm going to not include them because we've already spoken about them. So why would I repeat them? That's boring as hell. Although I will say Celine Dion, My Heart Will Go On, that was the inciting incident. She's to blame. She's to blame. She's to blame. I mean, I got to start off with the heaviest hitter of them all. And I'm going to say her name. Lady Gaga, of course.
There she is.
Specifically, I'll say Born This Way. I can look at Gaga's journey as an artist as a whole and really dissect it and talk about it. But there's obviously highlights on her musical journey, and Born This Way is, I think, the creme de la creme. And I remember there was so much controversy when it came out, and I think it's because Gaga's always been ahead of her time. And a lot of people at the time didn't like Born This Way. Yet, over a decade later, we look back and we're like, it's a pop masterpiece, at least in my opinion. And I thought it, in terms of all these answers are instructive to who King Vagabond is. There was a sense of theater to what Gaga was doing. There was a sense of breaking the pop mold and making it bigger than what it was. There was blend of genre. There was so much queer isms. There was queer club culture. You had runway songs like, I think it's pronounced Chazé, and you have the really dark pop, really kind of going back to what I said earlier about that kind of like really dark methodical space that I think from, and kind of somber space with songs like Bloody Mary and Electric Chapel. And then you have these expressively timeless classics in You and I, Edge of Glory. And then you have like the songs that were just like pushing the envelope, like Judas and Born This Way, that were just like bangers in that moment in time. Her choices in mythology, in religion, in expressing a reality through that which is questionably not real. To She just really did something that was so interesting. The rock and roll edge, the 80s edge, songs like Bad Kids, songs that were just expressive and beautiful anthems like Hair. I mean, I just think the album as a whole it's amazing. I don't really like Americano. I think it's the only one that I'm not a big fan, but even in that, she was reaching out to other cultures because she knew she was of the world and not of America. And, I think hats off to her. She's my biggest influence. King Vagabond is indirectly a byproduct of Gaga's touch in the music industry, down to her theatrical approach to vocals, because I always felt like I was too theatrical. I was too trained, and I didn't fit in. And she's spoken about that since she was a student at NYU Tisch, and she dropped out. But so many layers there of me relating to her. And then culminating in the Marry the Night music video, which was this probably my favorite music video of all time, in which she really told this beautiful story of personal trauma, and through this very peculiar, exaggerated, campy, performative lens. That whole excerpt at opening up saying that trauma is the ultimate killer and brain cells can't be reborn after traumatic events, and that she wrote the music video to fill in the gaps and make them more beautiful. And she's like, for instance, these nurses are wearing custom Calvin Klein, or next season Calvin Klein, and they're wearing like I'm just like, it's a fucking bitch. I love her. She's great. So I'll give that one to an album.
Yeah.
The second one I'm going to give to an album / single.
Okay.
Which, as a young person, this group was, when we were back in the 1800s, when we would back in the 90s, when we would listen to the radio station and we'd like couldn't hear a song unless it was on the radio if we didn't have the CD. So for the radio, you'd be like doing your homework and you'd like wait for the song to come on. I did that with this group, specifically with this album and specifically with this song. Linkin Park.
Oh my God, I'm already excited.
Meteora.
Yes.
Specifically Breaking the Habit.
Oh,
I don't know. It's, if you listen through Pros and Icons music and you listen even to King Vagabond, I think you can hear the influence of Linkin Park. Their conflux of genre, their ability to break the mold, even to team up with Jay-Z in that promo era. I mean, they were really freaking awesome. And I had the pleasure of recently, it was like 2019, I think, I met Chester Bennington's wife, obviously widowed. She was so sweet, so fabulous. She spoke about, I performed at a music convention, and she spoke about mental health in the music industry.
Of course.
So. And it was just, Chester Bennington's influence on pop, I think is in the early 2000s is undeniable. And I think it's underrated. And I mean, specifically for me, Meteora is my favorite album of theirs. But Breaking the Habit, just that energetic frequency that I was talking about, that song hits it. And to see, and I'm a fan of anime. I still like anime. I still watch anime. Growing up, I watched anime, and I felt like a weirdo because everyone made fun of me for it. But that video was animated.
Oh yeah, incredible.
And it was like it reminded me of like Ghost in the Shell, like a film noir anime detective. It was just like gorgeous. And obviously hits like In the End caught my attention early on, but it was really when Breaking the Habit came out that I was like, I love these guys. And I don't listen to them so much anymore. Their music kind of went a little off what I loved them for. And you can only listen to the same albums so many times. But that album specifically, but specifically that single Breaking the Habit. My next, in a similar world, as a young person, was I would say as theatrical as Gaga in a different way, but was the, I actually would listen to this CD before I had an iPod on my bus driving to school. I had literally the headphones that go over your ears, and there's a little circular, they look like this texture.
Yeah.
And then there's like a little CD. I have it on repeat. Everyone thought I was a crazy depressed person for listening to it, but Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge by My Chemical Romance. That album was my savior when I was a weirdo, queerdo at a young age. I was too afraid to own up to it. Even after I owned up to it, I was bullied a lot growing up. People would literally follow me around school. I'd like just to bully me. I mean, it was stupid. And when I was in that really like instructive space, my parents were getting divorced. I was closeted queer. There was a lot going on. And I came out of the closet shortly after. I came out at a young age. I was misbehaving. I was acting stupid. Their album was like everything to me. Helena, Ghost of You, which if you tune into short form King Vagabond content, we did a cover of Ghost of You that's upcoming, and it's fabulous. But that album is still to this day, I'm like, it's so freaking good. And obviously Black Parade is their Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, Black Parade is like statement. It's phenomenal.
I think it's undoubtedly their best song, but there was just something about the album Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge that was, for me, a huge deal. And I hid from that for a long time because I was made fun of. So I didn't like let people know that I bought manga and read manga. I didn't let people know that I watched anime. I didn't let people know I like My Chemical Romance. I hid from those things. But to this day, when that album comes on, I'm like, I feel inspired.
Yeah.
Still, so many years later. Okay, so we have two more. I really had to think about this because I'm like, this is hard. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna save my best for last. The second to last is one of my biggest musical influences across the board. This is one of my mom's favorite artists, if not my mom's favorite artist. And I'm gonna give it to specifically this song because it is directly instructive to King Vagabond. And I don't know if anyone's picked up on this, but Elton John, Can You Feel the Love Tonight? And for many reasons, The Lion King was the first movie I ever saw in theaters. It's one of the earliest memories I have with my mother, who is so special to me. Even my stage name, Joey Dean was, I don't know why people always called me Dean. I worked in restaurants in like my early to mid 20s, and people were always like, Dean. And I'm like, my name's Joe. At the time, I'm like, Joe? Like, where the hell did you get Dean? People just call me Dean. They said I looked like a Dean. And I always had, aside from, the makeup and stuff right now, I always traditionally had a more like kind of old school Hollywood way of styling myself, leather jackets, white t-shirts, slicked back hair. So I always felt connected to James Dean, but my mother's maiden name is D-E-E.
Right.
So it was kind of an homage to her, but just fell kind of neatly into the world of what made sense. It added another reason as to why Joey Dean became my stage name. I was like, if I came up with this reason separately, but the fact that my mother took me to see The Lion King, and it's an Elton John song, and Elton John is one of my most favorite artists, and he reminds me of her. And Elton John, I trained my voice growing up. I mean, he was the artist I sang in the car. And songs like, especially Daniel has that energetic frequency that I speak about, that I like to capture. It's that like bittersweet, somber, there's just something special to that song, or your song, like those songs specifically. Like, but Can You Feel the Love Tonight is all about love, which to me is consciousness. I really think that we're all love in different forms. And I wanted King Vagabond to have that message, this like shared love, shared consciousness. But if you're remembering if you know it, the chorus sings, the final line is, "It's enough to make kings and vagabonds believe the very best."
Got it.
And when I heard that, I was like later in life, especially around the idea when I had the novel, I was like, I always thought that lyrically that song was so beautiful. A twist in kaleidoscope moves us all in turn. I'm like, there's so much beautiful wisdom in that song. And that wisdom of consciousness, of that, there's a time for everyone if they only learn. that the twisted kaleidoscope moves us all in turn. It's this idea that we're all part of the same whole. And that is the kind of the message, the ultimate message of King Vagabond. That message is love. And I like working with friction. I like two things coming together. And that's why there's an electronic influence as well as an alternative influence to our pop, because there's this whimsy and fun with like this angsty grit. And I feel like those are two opposing elements.
Mm.
And with pros and icons, it was the same idea. It was pros and cons. It was this idea of, friction, but also was implementing the idea of icons, i.e. iconography, and prose, i.e. literature. So it's always been there. But King Vagabond was this, I wanted to create something supernatural. And when I heard that lyric one day listening to him, I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And it like strangely wasn't a thing. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. So specifically that song, but Elton John in general.
Yeah.
Love Snaps for Elton John. And then my last, this is my favorite artist probably of all time, next to Gaga. But maybe even more so, I don't know. This is my favorite vocalist of all time. I think he's untouchable. And I'm going to give this up to the artist as a whole. Every one of their songs, every one of their discographies, but Journey, Steve Perry.
Really? Interesting. Wow.
Number one. I just, growing up, it was like similar to that like Celine Dion-esque feeling where I was like, what is this? I would listen to songs like Open Arms and Faithfully and I'd be like, how can I do that?
Yeah.
Turns out I can't, but I'm dating somebody who can. I don't know. I think Steve Perry is a masterclass in voice. I think he is the best vocalist of his time. Not to compare him to other styles of singing, but people give it to other singers before they give it to him. And I'm like, he is a master.
Oh yeah.
And there's just something about Journey's music that just like makes me want to cry. I don't know what it is. I became obsessed with Journey when I was in high school. Obsessed. I actually got gifted all of their albums and I would just listen to them on repeat, everything, every song. I love them so much. And I don't listen to them so much anymore. There's actually a bit of like uncomfortableness I listen to when I hear Journey, because now that I know so much about my voice, it's really difficult for me to sing his songs in the original key. And it's probably just like physiologically not in my means. Like I'm just there, but it's really challenging for me. So it's actually hard for me to listen to his music sometimes, because there's the one thing I always want to do as a little boy was be able to sing Steve Perry songs, and I can if I lower the key, just like but yeah, I just think everything they've done is just exquisite. It's just at heart I'm a vocalist, and I just think he's a master. But Journey's music as a whole I love, but I mean it's really Steve Perry that I don't want to see them in concert with the new singer they have. Nothing against him, but
no,
he sounds too similar to Steve Perry, and he's not Steve Perry. And to me, I'm just like, I'm gonna let that memory just, it's past its time. I wasn't alive when he was a big deal. He's just going to be one of the greats.
Yeah,
the great in my opinion. I think he really is fantastic.
I mean,
and a lot of his songs are about love, and I love that.
No, I mean, first of all, Joey, what a eclectic mix of a five. I love that. I love it so much. But a lot of it I relate to. And like, Steve Perry is phenomenal. Obviously, you will have seen live videos on YouTube of him performing, and hit that voice live as well as on record was just out of this world. I mean, a lot of people love Don't Stop Believing, right? 'Cause one of the biggest hits of all time, let alone of Journey. But Faithfully, I remember when I first heard that, and I was like, this song speaks to me. I mean, even that lyric, like, I get the joy of rediscovering you. I mean, just beautiful lyrics. And like, as you say, Steve Perry, especially in that song, the last kind of 30 seconds of that song is stunning. It's powerhouse vocals. When he sings, I'm Still Yours, I just can't even. Beautiful. Great choice. Good. Yeah, so good. I mean, Linkin Park is such a special band to me, because when I hear Linkin Park, I think of my brother. My brother is the biggest Linkin Park fan that I know. He met them like 7 times. He's seen them live like 10 times. I know. And
I was lucky to see them right before everything happened with Chester.
I was just going to say, in 2013, I went to Download Festival, which is a big metal and rock festival here in the UK. And Linkin Park were performing, they were headlining. So Bring Me the Horizon were on. And then there was another band. And then, so I was in my element, right? And then when Linkin Park came on, they were performing all of Hybrid Theory live from start to finish, the entire album. And they'd never done that, like in years and years and years. So
wait, I think I remember when that happened. I was so jealous.
Yeah, and I was there. So
that's amazing.
It was the first time I was ever seeing them live as well. And like my brother he was part of like, I think there's like the Linkin Park Underground, which is like a I don't know, like a fan type thing you can join. And
they would like sell it in their CDs.
Yeah, right.
Sign up for our it was like their fan club essentially.
That was it. Yeah. So he was part of it. I don't know if he still is, to be fair, but it meant that you got exclusive access to like meet and greets as well. So so he obviously went and met them before they performed. So he came out and he was in the sky, literally, like, oh my God, like buzzing. But yeah, that was the first time I was seeing them perform live. And honestly, Chester was a force to be reckoned with. Like that vocal fry, everything about it, like just phenomenal. And like, especially Breaking the Habit, that's my brother's favorite song. So
really?
So as soon as you said it, I was like, that hits me. Like, oh my God, that song, like just the memories consumed, like opening up the wound, I'm picking me apart again. Beautiful.
It's
and
incredible.
Then the whole song is fun. And a lot of people, when you talk about mental health and the importance of mental health, all you need to do is read Linkin Park's lyrics to understand, right? It's there. He's got it all written out. Just phenomenal.
And I think I could be mistaken, but I think that song actually took them, I don't know how many years they were together before it came out, but I don't know if they rewrote that song many times. I think that was one of their longest, like they had it done years before that album came out, but they had just constantly workshopped it.
Yeah.
And I love that example because people, to touch on something we said earlier about the music industry losing its soul a little bit, people think that, a lot of these writing sessions, I've been in them in big rooms like Warner Chappell Music and Sony ATV, being in these like spaces where you write with someone for 4 hours and you have to write a song and that's it. And yet this song that I've remembered, and I remember till this day, took years.
Yeah.
And it's just, art is subjective, it's different, and sometimes it takes a while to say what you want to say.
Yeah, to get it right. I mean,
they're a beautiful example of that.
Oh God, 100%. They were incredible. And like sometimes artists, as you said, there's no time limit on it. When the song's ready, when it's ready to come out. Like
sometimes it happens immediately, and sometimes it's
like
pulling teeth. But you like believe in it so much that you're like, I know this is something. It just needs time.
Yeah, I mean, like famously, Gaga has written songs in like 10 minutes, like before.
I think she wrote "You and I" on a piano that Elton John had performed something on. Somebody bet her that she couldn't write a hit in 10 minutes, and she wrote "You and I" on piano.
And I mean, how big was "You and I"? I mean, huge.
It's one of her greats.
Yeah, it's an anthem. It's an anthem, and such a different sound.
It's not my particularly favorite song, but it's undeniably an amazing song.
Yeah. Oh my God. Even like My Chemical Romance. I mean, like, so I was like a younger rock and metal kid, like still kind of am at heart, let's be real. So like, like My Chemical Romance, Linkin Park, like all of these different type of bands, they just speak to me. It's like my youth, right? So I go back and I'm like, oh, it takes me right back. There's still like a rock and metal night here in Newcastle, and like they play a mixture of all that type of music. So when it comes on, I'm just like, yes. Like, it's my language. I love it. It's just, it just speaks to me, right? It's just the music I was brought up on, like all of my friends are into that. So it takes me back to, I remember like when you were talking about listening to the CD with a CD player and the little headphones on, that was me with the album Fallen by Evanescence. When that album first came out.
That was my other album.
Really? There you go.
I was competing with Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge and Fallen. Those two albums were really huge for me.
Yeah, same.
But I think My Chemical Romance was more instructive.
Just tipped it over, yeah. But that, I remember like listening to God, like My Immortal, like Hello, like everything on that album.
We've talked about this before.
We have, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello is my favorite Evanescence song. That song is
Emily's vocal in that end section. Like, I'm sorry.
That space. That's the space. That's the emotional frequency. We're naming all these songs that talk about what I perceive as death.
Yeah. And so eloquently. But yeah, I mean, God, that was me like traveling like on the bus to go to college with like the little CD player listening to like that album. Oh my God, incredible. And that was around the time when you stuff like Linkin Park's albums were coming out and like just that era, take me back, early 2000s. And even like when Gaga, I mean, you know, just an icon through and through. What's interesting about Gaga is you take something like Just Dance and compare it to Marry the Night, compare it to You and I. It's like, it's chalk and cheese. Even like the way she presented herself is completely different to the way she is now, to the way she was, you know, even then. You know, this long, straight blonde hair compared to like,
Hello?
yeah.
We're frozen.
Oh, am we frozen? Are we back?
Let it go. Let it go.
Are we
Okay,
back? Okay, well, we're one with the wind and sky. We're back. Okay, so God, I love that song. Although I do prefer Into the Unknown.
I wonder why.
I do you not like it?
I wonder why. Isn't Aurora in that?
Okay, so okay.
Okay, cool.
I'm gonna go off on one. So Aurora does the voice of the spirit, spirit. So you know, that's
it was
Aurora.
originally her song, and they essentially sampled it, right?
Yes. So her version of it. Listen to it if you haven't heard her version of it. It's
I have actually.
You like it? It's like very dream-like.
That was the only thing I'd ever heard of hers, probably before you and I spoke about her. And I like instantly knew who she was.
Yeah.
It took a second. I was like, I get it. I know her. I met her.
I could talk about Aurora forever, but I really need to limit myself. But yeah, even like Panic at the Disco do an incredible cover. I don't know if you've heard that.
I haven't. I have, you know, there are certain albums of Panic at the Disco that are fabulous. And then went a little too poppy. But
yeah.
So I kind of fell off listening to some of their choices, and it probably would have been around the time that would have happened.
Yeah, I agree.
But I like Brendan Urie a lot. I think he's a great example for alternative pop music.
Oh my God, agreed. And what a vocalist. Have you heard him covering Celine Dion?
I haven't. I think the only two big songs I remember him doing that are like classics, Bohemian Rhapsody, of course.
Yeah.
And This Is Halloween.
Oh yeah, great track. Love that. Yeah. So he was doing like, I think it might have been on Twitch or something where he was live and he was listening to Ashes by Celine Dion.
So good. I wanted Corbett to cover that so bad.
He should. It's such an anthem. He's listening to it and he's vibing. He's just like, he just takes his earphones off and just starts singing like, you know, that big chorus. And he absolutely kills. He's just amazing. Like I'm a big fan. Somebody told me one time, this woman, I was on a night out one time and she had a tattoo on her arm and it was like the outline, like a silhouette of somebody. And like, she came over, she was very drunk. And she was like, I bet none of yous could tell me who this is on my arm. And people were looking, they were like, is it Elvis? Obviously big hair, you know. And she was like, no, everyone says that. And I was like, and I looked and I was like, it looks a little bit like Brendan Urie, thinking that she would not know who that is. And she was like, oh my God, you're the only person, you look a little bit like him. And I was like, and then made me have a photograph with her so she could show her friends this Brendan Urie lookalike. I was like,
that's so funny.
I mean, I'll take it, but I don't see it. But I was like, wow, I wish I had a quarter of his talent. Anyway, getting back to it, Gaga is what we're talking about. Yeah. So I'm a huge like Gaga fan. I think Gaga for me.
You hate her.
I do not. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? Do you remember when I made that mistake of talking about art pop in front of you and like you nearly fell off your chair?
I will. I'll pull out that sword. I'll fight for her tooth and nail.
To be fair, I went back and listened to the album and it's a lot better than what I remember. I'll give it that.
Were you inspired by my Instagram story rant?
That, and also by the way you looked at me when I dared question it in New York in December. Just your face went from like to.
I think it was so ahead of the time that at the time it was jarring to hear those influences together in music. Yeah. But again, I don't know what other acts I can think of because maybe I just don't know them, but I still think the genre we see today as hyperpop, I think art pop is the first example of that, period.
Yeah.
She made a genre and she didn't even know it. All these bitches, it's her sons.
She's multi-talented. I think Gaga is magic when it's just her at the piano. and it's just the piano and her voice. Stunning. Like, I think she performed, is it Speechless? She performed
at the Grammys when she
yes
did, after she did Bad Romance, and then she got on the piano and started smashing the bottles.
yeah
I could write a freaking book on this woman, I swear.
even like that acoustic version of Hair, you know, when she sat with the wig on and performed Hair on the piano.
God.
Beautiful.
Oh,
but then like you know, and then you see something like Bad Romance, you know, like that video is art. It's just
she filmed that in one room.
I mean, come on.
One room.
Come
Bitch
on.
on a budget.
Yeah,
on a
right.
budget.
And created this. Still my mom's favorite Gaga song, Bad Romance. She loves it.
It's amazing.
It's
I remember stealing
phenomenal.
it from YouTube before it came out.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, it leaked. Her new song leaked. I heard her perform Paparazzi on piano at some like radio TV thing. And at the time, Just Dance was huge. And I was like, who dat?
Yeah.
Who dat? What's this? What's this pop? Who dat? And then she did that, and I was like, oh, oh, she has a plan. She has a plan. She's ready to strike, and she did.
I love like Gaga's great as well when she takes her own songs and plays them in a different style. So like the jazzy version of Poker Face, when she performed that, I was like, oh, hello.
Yeah, that was my first really like true memory of Gaga.
Yeah, she's honestly super talented. For all that, Chromatica didn't do a lot for me, but Gaga is just
speak for yourself.
She's she's a force to be reckoned with. She's incredible, and I love that every album we get from her sounds different. You know, like compared Joanne to Chromatica. I mean,
that's the thing I love and I hate about her, actually, because I do love Chromatica. I really love Chromatica, but I would have preferred more of a coherent narrative from Born This Way to Chromatica. I think art pop fit. Art pop's honestly, if you took art pop and put it after Chromatica, I think in terms of like evolution, it would make more sense.
Right.
But yeah, Joanne, although there's so many good songs on it, it's just not what I love about Gaga.
Yeah.
Gaga.
Yeah. But I mean, props to her for doing it. You know, for kind of thinking, look, I want to try something different.
I saw the Joanne tour and it was fabulous.
Right, I bet. You know what? I bet. Fabulous. A Million Reasons is a beautiful song.
I was performing in North Carolina, which I don't know if you know geography, but is not close to New York.
Okay.
And I drove from North Carolina to New York the night of after my show to see her.
Wow.
In Queens. I had a show. I had an hour and a half set at a college in North Carolina, and I was like, okay, we got to make this happen. I can't miss Gaga. This can't happen. And I drove. I mean, it had to be at least 10 hours, at least 10-hour drive. I was like, wow, we're making it.
And was it incredible?
It was so good. I saw her on Art Pop. I saw her on Joanne. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see her this time. I mean, I could go, but the nosebleeds are the only affordable seats, and it's just like Ticketmaster in New York City is getting a little out of hand.
Yeah, I bet, right.
The seats like right in front of the stage, literally on Ticketmaster, I don't know if this is a legitimate price or if this is like a resale, are over $3,000.
What? Jesus.
I was like, hello?
Yeah.
Lady Gaga, this is your hometown, girl. Can you be nice to us?
$3,000. Jesus.
I'm sure they weren't originally that price, but I don't know. I don't know how it happens and how people do that. It's on Ticketmaster though, so it's like on the legitimate ticket sale. And then the nosebleeds are like $70, but they're like nosebleeds. But I might just go to go. Yeah. Yeah,
just to see her. Well, yeah, definitely. Well, taking it back. So,
sorry, tangent here.
I love it. It's all going in. Joey, obviously, you know, kind of wrapping up here, I want to talk a little bit about the future of King Vagabond. So, in terms of like, you know, we've got the first single out, which is incredible. Everybody still check it out. Can't like promote that enough. But talk to me about the future. Do you have anything about ideas of live performances, tours? Like, how is the album shaping up? Are we going for album over EP? Like, talk to me about a little bit about the future of King Vagabond.
Right now, we're focusing on building a foundation. As independent artists in the Northeast of the States, the performing, unless you're on a label or have management or have a booking agent, performing is really challenging. And what happens is what we call pay to play, which is crazy. The talent buyers, who are essentially, it's the term for a booking agent at a location. So the talent buyer, people who make deals with the talent who they don't care about, they will say, okay, we'll give you this many tickets that you have to sell for this price. So you have to cough up hundreds of dollars to afford those tickets and hope you can sell them. But if you can't, then you have to eat the money. Rarely do people book artists and pay them unless you're a cover band or something on that kind of capacity. We've done that for 7 years. And we were in the space where we were working with booking agents and booking tours right before the demise of the music industry.
Yeah.
And now that we're starting fresh, it's just too many hurdles to climb. Nico and I actually live kind of far from each other.
All right.
We're about an hour and a half from each other, which isn't terribly far, but it's far enough to impede on a regulative, regular rehearsal schedule, creative schedule. A lot of what we do now is virtual. We meet when we can, especially with the gas prices soaring in the States. It's really crazy. Then add on top of that, like hiring other musicians to work with us on top of having to pay a venue to perform. It's just a lot of layers of, I don't got time for that. I want so badly to perform. I miss it. I really do. And I hope by 2023 that happens. Our plan is to develop an audience until then. Because we are independently funded, we're independently everythinged. We literally sold everything we had that was of the band before this promo scheme. We had a van that we toured with. We had a trailer that we carried our equipment in. We sold it all. We were like, we need a budget to promote the music. It's just the only way for it to happen, because if we don't promote it, it's just not gonna go anywhere. Which is still very limited. Not only promote the music, but shoot music videos, photo shoots, hair, makeup, whatever we want to do for anything. And then all of the money we made from everything we sold, it only covers a portion of that. So we have to then cough up the rest out of pocket. So we're going to spend the next year just releasing music that we've had planned for a really long time, build up the story of King Vagabond, build the foundation, hope we can really generate a fan base. And then I hope to take that to the stage in a place where we can have people there to enjoy it. Otherwise, it takes the soul out of it for us. And it's just too many hurdles to climb when the industry right now is like, every time you have to do anything, it feels like a mountain. It's not a small endeavor. It's huge. And with social media constantly changing. I mean, I was looking to put out ads on our music through Facebook Ads Market, which recently changed. And I'm a little on the fresher side to everything that's new. But during the pandemic, I actually pursued certifications in this stuff so I could be really, really knowledgeable. And there were just so many hurdles in starting a new ads account and all these things that it's been now 2+ weeks and I still don't have it figured out.
Right.
So it's like everything is this huge mountain to climb. So we're going to be intentional with our choices, focus on the one thing, which is to build up the streams, build up the audience, get our music out there, get it heard. And then, I mean, we talked about a potential Halloween EP.
Ooh.
Around the time of Halloween. I don't know what we're going to have time for in terms of span of our releases, but we actually have all of our releases planned. Like I know the date of every single release leading up until the fall. And we have a song that is somewhat themed into the lens of what would fit a Halloween vibe. So I was thinking of grabbing some collaborations with artists and kind of just doing something expressively for fun.
Nice.
And that, yeah. And then you might be hearing a King Vagabond Corvix collab in the near future, but that's just to be spoken about at a later date.
Nice little tease. I love it.
Oh.
All right. Well, speaking of social media, Joey, obviously, pimp them all out. Where can everybody find King Vagabond, and where can everybody find you and Nico? Tell us them all.
You can find King Vagabond on all social media platforms at the King Vagabond or /King Vagabond. We have everything listed on our website if you do get lost, which is kingvagabond.com. And you can stream our debut single, Rule the World, on literally every streaming platform. So search King Vagabond, look for a single, Rule the World, stream it, follow us, tell me you like it, or tell me you hate it. I don't care. As long as it gets a reaction, it means I did something. And you can follow me personally if you seek to follow my individual journey at joeydeanofficial on all social media platforms. And I don't know Nico Vod's handles. I think it's at Nico Vod. think it's at Nico Vaught if you want to follow Nico. Nico is the guitarist of King Vagabond, and I think more appropriately, he is the producer. I call him our sonic samurai. He creates the amazing sounds that you hear that I perform with my voice, and he does all the instrumentation and stuff. And it's I sit in the co-pilot seat, but he is the mastermind, and absolutely follow his journey. And you'll be hearing a new single from us very soon.
Wow, there we go. So yes, make sure
filming the music video for that in 2 days. So
oh my God, exciting. No, I can't wait.
we had a flip up, a trip up, a flip up. I make up expressions. I don't know if you've learned that on this.
Let's roll with it.
We had to rewrite our music video concept 2 days ago because of some issues we were having with creating it. So I've been like panic calling Alex. I'm like, Alex, what are we doing? What's going on?
Yeah. Oh shit, man. But you know what? I'm sure it will be amazing. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to hear it. It'll be phenomenal. You'll knock it out the park. You will. You will. You'll do it.
Thank you. And I hope you like it.
I'm sure. Well, I'll let you know.
It's gonna make you want to dance. So.
Well, we'll see. So I'm joking. No, I'm sure I'll love it. I'm sure I will. All right. So yeah, so there you go, everybody. So make sure you check out, obviously, King Vagabond, everything. Go and just absorb them and listen to Rule the World as well. Make sure you go and check that out on all streaming platforms. I've passed it around to my friends. So make sure you do the same thing as well. If you want to follow the podcast, obviously, we're on all streaming platforms. If you just type in Into You Podcast, you will find us on there. You'll find the video portion of this on my YouTube channel, which is obviously just type in Adam Strawn. You will find me there. We're also available on all social media. So if you just type in Into You Podcast, you'll find us on there. If you want to follow me, I am at Strawn87. That's Instagram, Twitter. If you want to just type that in, give me a little cheeky follow. Type that in, you'll see my face. I also do another podcast called Last Week On, where we're currently going through Invincible, the TV show. So if you're all up in that and enjoy us talking about that, come and check out that as well. That's Last Week On Pod. So Joey, I just want to say a big thank you again for taking the time to come and talk to me all about King Vagabond, just hanging out and just us, it's been nice that, we talk, sporadically, but I always enjoy it. It's such a pleasure. So thank you so much for coming on, talking about everything. I loved it.
Thank you. And again, I said this before, but thank you for being so inquisitive and for looking into the soul of music and understanding the choices, or at least attempting to, and succeeding. But like I said, you are an incredible audience member, and it is people like you that make me excited to make art, because I feel like it's entering a void. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about King Vagabond and Rule the World. It's exciting to me because this has been something I've wanted for so long, and it's here. So it's like kind of weird that I get to chat about it, especially in length.
Yeah, no, of course. No, honestly.
Not in one sentence.
No, honestly, it's my pleasure. And thank you so much for your kind words. I really, really do appreciate that. All right, everybody. So thank you again. Make sure you go and check out King Vagabond. And until next time, take care.